Welcome to the Business Bravery podcast, inspiring stories from coaches and course creators to help you do the next brave thing in your business. Coming up on the Business Bravery podcast.
Here's what started happening is in the months, the leaner months where I didn't have as many clients or as much service-based work, I didn't want to look at the numbers because I didn't want to judge myself. So I'd be kind of tracking it in my head. And then with the idea, and like this sounds so ridiculous saying it out loud to you guys, but the idea being that in the higher months, I'd sit down and sort it out and my ego would be protected. Okay, because it's like, oh yeah, we had this lean month, but look at this other month, we did well. But when these big things come up and it's like, you've got to work through it, but there's just this part of you that stubbornly just doesn't want to work through it. It's like having a little toddler temper tantrum. And it's like, I know I could journal about it, but I don't want to fix it. Part of me just wants to be stuck here because it's safer to stay stuck than to perhaps move through it and move into the next person, the next identity, and leapfrog and make those movements, especially when you sort of couple the self-doubt with the fear of success that I had. Because for me, the being successful has that thing of worrying about letting clients down and making a mistake and letting a client down or something like that. Previously on my calendar, I'd have bookkeeping. That was all I'd have. So of course it's going to be hard to do the thing and take action when I don't have a set of steps. What is my system? Okay. So now it becomes this system of like, okay, so I'm going to load up my personal spreadsheet. I'm going to load up my business spreadsheet. I'm going to log into the bank account. I'm going to look at income. Then I'm going to track the expenses in this way and just get really like exact small step by step. It's like, here's what it looks like for me to do this task. Okay. I'm your host, Tiffany Gilleland, an Australian business and launch coach with 10 years experience in online marketing and the creator of the Brave Launch Framework. I help coaches like you to be brave so you can stop dreaming and start doing that next big brave step and finally make more impact and get more clients. From speaking on camera to selling to launching, my approach to bravery helps you take bigger leaps without the mindset spirals. It's the secret ingredient to bigger results. Today, I'm being super brave and talking about some amazing breakthroughs I made around money. In this episode, I will share exactly how I went from anxious and avoiding looking at my bank account and my tracking spreadsheets to bravely and proactively tracking the numbers without judgment. That's right, I'm now a brave business coach who knows her numbers and doesn't judge herself by the figures on a piece of paper. Sounds simple, right? But it's not. Anyway, I am so excited to share this transformation because this is one step closer to the millionaire version of me, and I want to share with you exactly how I made this transformation in a couple of weeks after months of avoiding the problem. I'll also share my background with money and numbers because it hasn't always been this way. Also, how I got into this situation and the exact steps I took to identify and shift the thoughts, feelings, and beliefs around money. A big part of this revolves around my shift into running my business full time, and so I also discuss how I made that decision and my income levels, as well as its effect on my money thoughts, beliefs, and management. I know you are a skilled coach and many of the tools will be familiar. However, I believe there's a lot of value in how someone applies the tools and the real-world examples of breaking through a huge mindset block. Now, who's ready for some business bravery inspiration? Let's dive in. Hello there, and welcome to the Business Bravery podcast, and welcome to another behind the scenes look of something that I'm working on in my business, usually around mindset at this point. I have 10 years experience in online marketing, so those points of the marketing side of things doesn't always need to be looked at by me. I have all of those skills and experience. It's the mastering my finances that I'm looking at today, and specifically, we're looking at money stuff, and more specifically just looking at the tracking the income and expenses and anxiety around looking at my bank account. Okay, so I'm going to be sharing these amazing breakthroughs and be talking about my before and after situation. I'm going to be talking a bit about my background with money and how I got into my before situation. And then I'm actually going to be talking you through what I went through to kind of shift my identity, like find my beliefs and that kind of thing. Now, if you happen to be listening to this and you are not dealing with the exact same thing around money, there's still plenty here that can be applied to this kind of block might be coming up in your sales, to do with marketing, to do with networking, to do with getting on camera, to do with like doing the next masterclass, right? It is a similar process that we go through. And I find it fascinating that with all of my years of experience, I still come up against these blocks that I don't want to deal with. And sometimes I keep putting it off and focus on other areas that seem easier to deal with. So yeah, this is I think going to be a very valuable podcast episode for you guys. And yeah, like this is just looking at me managing and tracking my income and expenses in my business and also my personal finances. It's going to be around like not judging myself based on the numbers in my bank account or the numbers in my tracking spreadsheet. And I'll give you more insight into that kind of situation. And also it's just like busting through that block around even like looking at my bank account, because the anxiety, even when I like after I had let this situation go on for a few months, and the idea of like looking at my bank account, like even having to go to my bank account to pay someone and like look at what money was in there and everything, the anxiety was so real. I would rather go watch YouTube instead, or I no longer soothe or avoid those feelings with chocolate and food, because I've worked through a lot of that with my health coaches. Shout out to Tracy and Jess. But yeah, it's just that whole the anxiety was just so real. Like just even like typing in the web address for my bank, and oh man, it just the anxiety would come up. And yeah, that's obviously not where I am now. A few months in, I have a system set up and I've shifted my identities and my identity, my beliefs and thoughts around this. And I have a whole process that I went through that I've got sort of blocked out for you guys to take on board and to just take a look at this. And I know for most of you, you are coaches yourselves, and so a lot of this stuff may not be new, but hearing it applied to situations, that's what I always find valuable, okay? And I don't know, like when I'm in the thick of that anxiety stuff, that is, and anxious about something, and it's tapping into maybe old stories from childhood and stuff like that, that's when I'm not always the clearest on, okay, here's my system, here's how I want to work through it. And I have coaches to help me with a lot of this stuff too. So yeah, I don't know, I love hearing these stories about how people apply this, how they work through it. And this is obviously the same process that I help my clients work through. And yeah, for me, there's a whole bunch of tools in the toolbox, but which tool do you go for? Which one worked better in this situation and that kind of thing? When you're outside of it and you're helping a client through it, it can be easier to grab those tools and work through the tools yourself, because it's not bringing up stuff for you. It can be a whole different side of things when you're like coaching yourself through this and you stuff's coming up in the middle of you using the tools. Anyway, I'm getting a bit too meta, but you guys are coaches, so I think you're going to get it. I think you're going to understand where I'm coming from, and this will be useful for anyone who knows you should be doing something in your business and or maybe even your life, but something in you just can't move forward. So it could be like the creating content, the networking, the doing the masterclasses, the webinars, the challenge launch or something. It could just be getting on camera, that kind of thing, right? This will also be useful for those of you who want to know a bit more about knowing your numbers and knowing them without judgment. And I'm going to be talking about that. And I'm also going to be outlining what knowing your numbers means to me and that process. So there will be some instructions around that kind of thing, bearing in mind while I have done accounting at university, I am not a financial person. And so, take that and use it as you will. This is not financial advice, but this is just my experiences and what I have learned and that kind of thing. And it's also useful for those of you in my audience who maybe have some big decision to make, but you're feeling anxious about it. And that knowing your numbers really helps with that ability to make decisions and make decisions faster, especially for me. So I'll be talking a bit more about that. So the key takeaways for today's episode is how to bust through a block and work through anxiety to varying levels, whether that's around money or other things, the identifying beliefs and shifting them, and then how I get results for myself and my clients, and how to manage and track your finances. So there's some key takeaways and some things to be aware of that's coming up. And I guess in case it's not already evident to those of you, I have a set of notes that I'm working from, some nice dot-pointed outline to help keep me on track and to make sure I mention the things that I need to mention. And I, of course, will always go off track as I do and go on some little sidelines. But just knowing that there's a plan here. There's a plan here. Maybe even a better plan than I've had for some past episodes. So if you've got any feedback for me on that, let me know. So before I get into just talking about my situation, what I was dealing with in the before land, the pain points, the struggles, that kind of thing, and then talking you through some of my background and then, the process I went through to shift this, I just want to flag with you guys that if you are feeling so aligned and that this lines up with some stuff that you were working on and you like my approach and maybe want to talk about working together, that is a very real opportunity for you to work with me. There are a few slots opening for July. This is coming out on the, I think, 2nd of July in the States, 3rd of July here, I think. So yeah, there will be some slots opening up in July, and you can come in and book in that free strategy call. You can go to my website, which is tiffanygstudios.com, TIFFANY, G for golf, STUDIOS.com, and no spaces, no capitals, anything like that. And in the top right-hand corner, there is a book a call button, and you can follow that. Or you can come and get in touch with me on the Instagrams at Tiffany G Studios, TIFFANYGSTUDIOS. No spaces, no underscores, all lowercase, and come find me at that handle on Instagram to get the booking link, or you can reach out to me on Facebook or even LinkedIn if that is your place of hanging out. Although on LinkedIn, you might need to look for Tiffany Gilleland, Gilleland, to find me, but the business also does have a page over there. I spend more time on Instagram, so it's probably easier to find me there. And you can book in for a free strategy call just to see if we are a fit to work together. I have 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month packages available, and my prices start from $497 per month at this point in time for one-on-one coaching. And that is at the time of recording, and I reserve the right to change those prices. Yeah. So just know that that is a real option and opportunity if that is something that you would like to find out more about. I won't bore you too much more with that. Let's get into all the cool fun stuff about money. Can't believe I just said that. A few weeks ago, like a month or so ago, 6 weeks ago, I would not have said, let's get into the fun stuff of money. And that is a real indication into how my whole attitude around this stuff has changed. And just know that in the before time, like we do these before and the after and the transformations, and it's what I help you guys do with the, getting more clients and things like that. They don't want to know how many coaching calls. They want to know what that transformation is. How do we work together? And in my before time, the long ago in the before time, I was not tracking. So I was not tracking my income and expenses regularly. I was not looking at the numbers on a page. I was tracking them to a certain extent in my head because I haven't always been like this around the numbers in my business. But as the months went on, I was less and less certain about those numbers, okay? And then I was becoming more and more fearful about even like looking at or even logging into my bank account, and the physical sensation of just like every muscle tightening, just the sense of overwhelm that just enveloped my whole body at the thought of even just logging into my bank account. Yeah, like that's where I was at, and I'll tell you a bit more about how I got to that point and give you more clarity around that. But I just need you to know that I'm not someone doesn't who doesn't understand the numbers, okay? I understand the numbers in the accounting software. I understand that sort of stuff. I can read a balance sheet and a profit and loss and that stuff. I even know what a bank reconciliation is and have done them in the past. So that wasn't an excuse, right? But I did have other issues and beliefs going on that I wasn't working through, and it was affecting other areas of my business, like decision making, my ability to get clients, and the lack of self-worth and confidence around that was definitely impacting my ability to get clients. And then it was creating this repeating cycle, all right? Because as I wasn't, how do I explain it? So as I wasn't like, I had that, it was like reinforcing my lack of self-worth because I knew that the numbers were down, especially the income numbers were down. And so then I wouldn't feel worthy, and then that would affect my ability to get clients, which then would mean I wouldn't want to look at the numbers because I didn't want to feel unworthy, all the while just keeping that whole feeling of feeling unworthy. And yeah, just creating this repeating cycle that I was in. So it was something that it couldn't keep going on, right? I couldn't just let it keep happening, because at some point my worst fear could come true, and that was like logging into the bank account and seeing that there wasn't enough money to pay everything. And thankfully, and I'm very grateful, I have had the money to cover all of my expenses and everything has been okay. Somehow the universe always helped me out in that regard, but definitely the savings are, they're decreasing as I'm investing a bit more in my business at this point in time, and I'll tell you a bit more about that in a minute. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a background and history with money and numbers from me, and sort of how did we get here, but it's like, how did I get here, really? It's nobody else, it's just me, or maybe the number of personalities in my brain, who knows. But just because I think, like, when it comes to identifying your identity and your beliefs about something, understanding your own maybe background and history can help you find some of those thoughts, those beliefs, those attitudes and things about money, even like unconscious biases and things like that. So the first one is my father, who is he's no longer with us, but he's very much in my mind, right? Because this is where I learned a lot about money from him. And in the key things to know here, I've talked about this a little bit on the podcast. I can't remember how much depth I went into it, but my parents built a very successful 7-figure business when I was about eight or 9 years old. It was selling computers in the late 80s, early 90s. And that made a very big impression on me, and also made a very big impression around in some ways they made it look easy, and 7 figures, that kind of thing. And just to be clear, that was 7 figures of income, not 7 figures of profit. And yeah, I don't actually know the exact figures, but the profit was definitely less than that, as my dad was always jumping in to let me know. All right, it's revenue, not profit. And so also from my father has had a background in accounting, and that was his strength. His strength was around numbers. And there was also a lot of expectations from him to me around, me also being good at numbers. Okay. So I did accounting at school and university, right? So I can read those financial statements and understand them. I can read somebody else's. I could probably even advise them on some things that I can see on the bank statements and those, especially the profit and loss around what's going on and that sort of thing, right? The thing about me though is that I prefer language and words over numbers. So I have a big bias in that area, and I definitely have a lot of baggage around the numbers and just numbers in general. Maths at school was always harder for me, and there was always a lot of extra judgment from my father if I couldn't get good grades at maths, because that's where he excelled, right? And English and language, sure, that's nice and all, but it was the numbers that was going to make you money in his world. Like, see how there's all these like identities, unconscious biases, and things like that. That's definitely coming along in my world here. So most of my life, I have judged myself on the numbers in my bank account, the numbers of my salary in years gone past, the numbers in my spreadsheet and my tracking, and the numbers on the scale even, right? Getting on the scale. A number of years ago, for a number of years building my business, it was like I built my business part-time on the side, and I also had a part-time day job, okay? And when I had the part-time day job, I didn't have a problem because I had extra money to learn and make mistakes, and I was contributing to the savings, not dipping into the savings, okay? Now, we get to February 2021 when I went full-time in my business. And for anybody who is wondering about that decision and that kind of thing, so I chose to go full-time in my business. I wasn't earning the same amount in my business as in my part-time job, but I was doing about 75% of what I earned in my full-time job. So with the business and my full-time job, between the two of them, I was earning, I was probably making that 5K a month, right? I didn't plan this out. I was just going to talk to you about doing 75%, but I realized actual numbers might actually help. Hey, this is Fugitive here, jumping in for a quick moment to ask you, what is that next big brave step for you in your coaching business? Is it the podcast, maybe the workshop or challenge? Perhaps it's just getting your first paying clients, or simply getting on camera. Whatever it is, you've been dreaming about it for some time, and when you go to get started, that's when other things come up. Family stuff, or clients need more support, or there's a room that needs decluttering. Whatever that is, there's a part of you that knows how amazing it would feel to finally be brave and get that dream project out into the world. You know it would get people talking about you, and it would lead to more clients. But you don't know how to start, how to make it happen, and how to make it a success. That's where I can help you to use my 10 years of experience in online marketing and my skills in managing your mind, so you can make that big leap without the mindset spirals, so you can find the time and the energy to make your dreams come true. I have a few but limited slots open in July for free 45-minute strategy calls, so you can create a plan to get your dream project out into the world without the stress, the overwhelm, and the burnout. Come and find me at tiffanygstudios.com or message me over on Instagram at tiffanygstudios. That's TIFFANY, G for golf, STUDIOS. No spaces, no underscores, no capitals, and DM me over there and you can send me the word strategy call to get started. Thanks for listening, and let's get back to the podcast. My part-time day job, I was earning around about $3,000 per month. And that's in Australian dollars, but that's $3,000 per month. And then in my business, I was doing about $2,000 per month. And I was maxing out on time and energy. Those of you who know me better know that I deal with some chronic health conditions. And so, my ability to work the 16-hour days usually comes at a big cost in terms of some sort of pain flare-up. So that's not an option that is open to me. The other thing that came up is after February 2021, we had a significant time of working from home here in Australia. So all of 2020 had been working from home, and I had always avoided that. I thought I would go stir crazy without having some time in an office to see real people and talk to real people. I thought that wouldn't be good for me and my mental health. I do have issues with anxiety, and the social interaction weirdly helps that. But then 2020 happened, and I found I actually quite enjoyed the working from home and being able to juggle things, and my schedule had way more flexibility again, and I didn't have to have time in an office that was completely blocked off, and I could insert things in between each other, and it was great. Like, I still did my hours, but it wasn't predicated of having to be in an office while I did those hours and things like that. The thing was, in February 2021, they were saying, we want everyone to come back to the office. And that's just where I found I didn't want to go back. I couldn't go back. And I had this business, and I just thought, you know what, imagine if I had all this extra time to do all of the networking and all the, doing a podcast and all that kind of stuff. So that's where I sort of said, goodbye to my part-time day job. It was a risk, but I had long-term service-based clients, so I thought it was a risk worth taking, and I don't regret that. Although right after me resigning, I did end up losing one of my long-term service-based clients. So the universe was challenging me. But yeah, that's just like a bit of background on sort of me, and then me going full-time in my business, because so the money mindset stuff that was going on through this, right, was definitely affecting things. And the money mindset when I had that part-time job versus then once I gave up the part-time job, that's when the money mindset became more of an issue, because I didn't have this extra income in which to make mistakes. And I've talked to you guys a bit on my social media. I don't know how much I've talked about it in the podcast so far, but one of the biggest things that has held me back at times has been my own self-doubt and my own vision of, like, it's totally okay. Like, I can see anybody else in the world having a business, a successful business, but there was something just deficient in me that meant I wouldn't have a successful business. And when you have that kind of belief, it's very easy to go and find the evidence to keep reinforcing that belief. And one part of that is definitely this money stuff, right? And not wanting to look at the money, especially with this money mindset that I had, and sort of the income that went up and went down in different months. So here's what started happening is, in the leaner months where I didn't have as many clients or as much service-based work, I didn't want to look at the numbers because I didn't want to judge myself. So I'd be kind of tracking it in my head. And then with the idea, and like, this sounds so ridiculous saying it out loud to you guys, but the idea being that in the higher months, I'd sit down and sort it out and my ego would be protected. Okay. Because it's like, oh yeah, we had this lean month, but look at this other month, we did well. And for those of you who are coaches, especially with, the skills and mindset that we probably all have, right? You're going to recognize what I'm doing to myself here, right? I'm, my mindset is reinforcing my beliefs, and then my beliefs are like going and finding the evidence with the RAS, the reticular activating system, activation system or activated system. I've heard it said so many different ways. And I'm trying to protect my ego, but then my ego is causing me to lack my self-worth, which is then having an effect on my ability to get more clients and even be open for more clients, right? So this all comes to a head around about January this year, when I lost a big service-based client. And I honestly, I enjoyed coaching so much more. So I've had the services and the coaching going kind of together easily since 2019. And in fact, even before that, I was doing marketing consulting. So for me, marketing consulting is where somebody comes to you and they're like, give me an answer, and I give them an answer, and then they would go away and implement that answer, or I would help them implement that answer to varying degrees of success. What I found though was those that didn't have the mindset stuff in place didn't get nearly as good results as those who knew how to manage their mind through some of this stuff and deal with negativity. And then that also was a highlight for me that I needed to look at my mindset too. And that started me on more of this mindset side. So that's why I help people with Bravery, on where we look at the marketing and we look at the mindset. So in my business, I'm wanting to do just more of that coaching. It lights me up. I enjoy it more. And I don't have to necessarily get into somebody else's business and get into their head and, sort of, it's nearly like putting on this suit of them to be their brand and build their brand. I get to come in and guide them through it so then they can step into their own leadership. And that's just where I just enjoy things more. The thing is usually if you lose a big client, you turn around and go get another client. But then it's that transition from service to coaching. And it was slower for me to pick up because of this mindset stuff that I'm going on. But I'm definitely not looking at the numbers, okay? Because I didn't want to look at the numbers because I knew, one, I was going to judge myself about those numbers and be like, yep, see, you're not good at business, and you'll never build a successful business, and you're not good enough to, and that kind of thing. And then also part of looking at those numbers would be, my solution would be go and get some more service-based work to just keep the money coming in. Or the other thing would be just, you've just got to get more clients, which just leads to this huge stress. You'd think, just get more clients. It sounds easy and flowy, right? Not the way I was talking to myself. For me, it was this huge stress of got to get more clients, got to get it, got to do it now. And that just led to me not taking action on getting more clients. In fact, that phrase just does not light me up, right? For me, I'm about connection, building relationships, just being passionate, talking about what I do. And that is usually the stuff that attracts more people and gets the right people to me and finds me clients and has clients coming to me. That's what was going on. And so I didn't want to fall into the habit. And so I'm trying to break the cycle. Now, talked a lot about looking at the numbers. What does that mean, looking at the numbers? Because it's not just logging in and looking at the money in your bank account, because that's one part of it. The other part is my system is I have a spreadsheet where I am tracking the income and the expenditure. Each tab is a different month. I'm tracking my expected income and then the actual income and then the expected expenses versus the actual expenses. And for me, being based in Australia, I buy a ton of different software and things to run my business based in the US. It's all run on US dollars, which means that in Australian dollars, the payments change a lot each month, right? It can be a few dollars. So I have to sort of overestimate what those are going to be, and I have to allow for those changes in the dollar, that kind of stuff. And I'm a weird one. I translate that US dollars to Australian dollars in my head all the time. The same from pounds and the euro as well. I'm always tracking those in my head. So Dad taught me some things and they did stick, right? But this spreadsheet, it doesn't always line up with what's in the bank account, because I'm also tracking out things I have a yearly subscription to some things. And so I'm putting money in my spreadsheet all the year leading up to the next payment so that I can pay for that. So that way I really know how much it costs me to build, to grow my business. And there's also trying to allow for certain things like having to replace computers and some of those other hidden costs that come up. This is what we're looking at. We're looking at the income and the expenditure, and then it's tracking those actuals. And if you have zoned out already, I apologize. It's this numbers thing. It's a thing, isn't it? So looking at the numbers involves going to the spreadsheet, tracking the income, tracking the expenditure. And it's like, oh, hey, I've talked to a client. I think they might sign on. I'll put them in the expected column. And then, coming back a week or two later, I was like, oh, yes, they actually did pay me. That's happened. Put that in the actual column. The same with the expenditure, and just tracking between the different, like my bank account, my Stripe, my PayPal, what's going out, what's coming in, and being able to see that in one place for a calendar month. There's also being able to put money aside to pay relevant taxes, being able to pay myself a wage as separately, having savings for the business. And then there's a system called Profit First, where you put that money aside for yourself, for the savings, for the taxes, and then what's left is what your operating budget and that kind of thing. There's also sending statements to my bookkeeper. So not only am I terrible with numbers, I even have people to help me with the numbers, and I'm still struggling a little bit. I was still struggling a little bit. But just know, I have moved through this and I am a completely different person now. Okay. And I'm going to tell you that amazing transformation and what I worked through. But I just wanted to sort of define what this looking at the numbers means. Also, what looking at the numbers is just like looking at the reports in my accounting software per month as well should be on this list. And just know throughout this time, these months, all this time deciding to invest in coaches and programs is just adding some additional anxiety, because at the moment my business is break even, but to invest in coaching and certain programs, that extra is coming out of my savings. So that also creates this additional anxiety, because there's definite thoughts, and I'm going to get to it a little bit like when I get through the working through it. But that whole, I'm spending more than I'm making. Whereas it's like I had to sort of transfer that into actually, no, I'm investing in my business and this is going to pay off and I'm making the right decisions. But that was a big, big problem for me. And that's my choice. That's my decision. You need to know, like, there are businesses in the world like Amazon. It spent more than it made for like the first 10 years before they actually made profit. Imagine if they'd have given up in year 3 or year 5, right? They could see that vision. And that is who I am. I know arguably a coaching business shouldn't be run this way. However, for me, like, I'm just building my skills and I am just like, this is my journey. It is slow, but I am stubborn and I'm going to keep moving forward. And yeah, like, next thing I'm working on is just being me, being more out there, meeting people, that sort of stuff. Like, this is the thing where that self-doubt just held me back for years. So this is my journey. This is why I want to help people so passionately with this stuff, because of just how many years this stuff held me back. Also throughout this time is just that judgment about the numbers. All right, now the next phase is, how did I break through this? So here's the steps that I took to just break through this, because I knew I needed to deal with it. It's so funny. I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but when these big things come up and it's like, you've got to work through it, but there's just this part of you that stubbornly just doesn't want to work through it. It's like having a little toddler temper tantrum. And it's like, I know I could journal about it, but I don't want to fix it. Part of me just wants to be stuck here, because it's safer to stay stuck than to perhaps move through it and move into the next person, the next identity, and, leapfrog and make those movements, especially when you sort of couple the self-doubt with the fear of success that I had. Because for me, the being successful has that thing of worrying about letting clients down and making a mistake and letting a client down or something like that, which my brain just makes bigger than Ben-Hur. More things that I'm working on. So how did I break through this, right? Number 1, just getting in touch with the why. Okay, so why is this valuable? Why do I want to do this? Why do I want to make this change? Why do I want to create this new approach? And part of doing this can be sitting down and doing that, the 7 whys, where you ask yourself a why question. So why is this valuable? And then you answer it, and then you use that answer to create your next why question. So Why is this valuable? Because I need to know my numbers. And then why do I need to know my numbers? Because then I can make decisions. Why do you need to know your numbers to make decisions? And then it's like, okay, so that I can make objective decisions and not worry about them and anxiety. And you see how we start working through this, and it's like, yeah, so that I can run a successful business. And a successful business doesn't mean that you are in profit all the time. There are always times in business where you are investing more in building up systems, building foundations, building the back end. If you're doing launches in between times, like sometimes if somebody launches once a year, that's their big time of making money. There may be times in between that where the money, like they're not making as much in between, especially as it gets closer to the next launch, okay, depending on how they work that out. So there can be times where you decide to, spend a bit more, especially as you're getting your business off the ground, right? You're going to be spending some money getting some things set up before you get your first clients, right? That doesn't mean you don't have a successful business. That just means that, you need to invest some money before you make the money, okay? So yeah, that's one of those things that I've been working on. And when it came to this, I worked through this with a coach. Like I had to actually sit down and sort of say, look, I know I need to do this, and I know I need to log into the bank account, but I just can't. I know I need to journal about it, but I just couldn't pick up a pen and actually journal and work through this. My subconscious just wanted to keep me safe, and it just wanted to keep me safe here, stuck in the cave, not taking the actions. And this is the stuff that I love helping clients with as well, right? So the first part is getting in touch with the why, and having a really strong, solid why as to why you want to make this behavior change, why it's valuable to make this behavior change, why it's valuable to think about things differently. Step 2 is deciding how I will feel ahead of time. Okay. So this came from a different coach of mine. Yes, I have multiple coaches. Judge me all you want. Arguably, if I didn't have all of the coaches, maybe I wouldn't be so worried about money. But the coaches helped me be more effective and get out of my own head and help me see the blind spots. It's so valuable to me. It's then working through, okay, some of the thought work, and then how do I want to feel ahead of time? How do I want to feel when I'm doing my numbers is part of it. And part of that is like working through finding those beliefs. So part of it is like, I'm not good enough to run a successful business was one of my beliefs. Not true, 100% not true, and definitely not a belief that serves me to build a successful business. And you would have seen me share this on social media. I had this thing where I was doing some journaling and sort of like affirmation journaling of like, my business is working and improving 1% every day. And that was something that I found really useful, because my brain, especially with a marketing background, is very good at like finding, okay, what's not working? What needs to be tweaked? What's not working? And that was just leading me to feel less and less ready to take action in my business. Makes it very hard when it's like, oh, this isn't working. It's not working. It's not going to work anyway. Whatever I try isn't working. Like, see these things that definitely held me back from finding more clients and building the relationships that lead to clients, right? So that's one belief. And then other thoughts of, yeah, it's not working. I hate numbers boring, right? Because it didn't start out with like this big amount of anxiety. It's like the anxiety built up after months of not looking at my numbers and not dealing with this. Originally it was just, oh, numbers are boring. Oh, I'll do it next week. I'll do it next week. As long as I do it once a month, that's enough. And this is where I had to then look at shifting those thoughts and having some intentional beliefs and intentional thoughts for how I wanted to handle things in the future, thoughts that were going to serve me, and challenge those beliefs. So like I said before, successful businesses have periods where they spend more money than they earn, e.g. Amazon. Okay. So the other thing of having those ladder thoughts, because it's hard to sort of turn around and go, oh yeah, I am good enough. Like after decades of going, I'm not good enough. So it's like, then it's usually going I'm learning to be good enough. Something else I love trying with my clients is like, what if we step into this other person, step into the limitless possibilities try on this other identity for a moment. What if you were someone who looked at your numbers and who knew your numbers, and then just like getting into that and then like connecting with the feelings around that? Okay. So the next part of this is creating a step-by-step action plan of like how I'm actually going to do the behavior change and do the work. Okay. So for me, and I like to do this with my clients when it fits, is anchoring that to a specific day and time. So it's like, okay, right. So this now needs to become a non-negotiable, like going to the gym, like eating healthy. This has to become a non-negotiable in my life. And in order to make that happen, I'm going to choose Sunday morning at 9 a.m. That is my time when I log into my bank account. Okay. And I do this particular set of steps to go through and track my money, both business and personal. Okay. And so I've set the day and the time, right? Sunday, 9 a.m. And then this is also where I start visualizing, okay, this is what this is going to look like. And it's going to be 9 a.m. and I'm not going to sleep in, and there's not going to be excuses. There will, of course, be things made for around vacations and things like that. But, 99% of the time, this is what's going to happen. And I'm pleased to tell you that it even happened when I had severe dental pain. So yeah, I have stuck to this. The other thing that needs to happen is breaking it down into the exact small steps of what you're going to do. So breaking it down into the small steps. So it's like, okay, because previously on my calendar, I'd have bookkeeping. That was all I'd have. So of course it's going to be hard to do the thing and take action when I don't have a set of steps. What is my system? Okay. So now it becomes this system of like, okay, so I'm going to load up my personal spreadsheet. I'm going to load up my business spreadsheet. I'm going to log into the bank account. I'm going to look at income. Then I'm going to track the expenses in this way and just get really like exact small step by step. It's like, here's what it looks like for me to do this task. Okay. While I'm making this plan and writing it out, I'm visualizing it and I'm feeling it. It's like, how am I going to feel when I'm doing this? Okay. The other thing that I did is allow time to journal before the given time because there's a whole big different leap between doing the thing, like planning the thing, and actually doing the thing. There are two different parts of the brain, to my understanding, right? So we plan ahead of time with the prefrontal cortex, and then it comes to the time to do it, and that's when the monkey mind comes in, and it just wants to avoid pain and seek pleasure and have fun and be lazy. And so that's oftentimes why when you're setting things in your calendar and it comes up to the time and you're like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to go to YouTube. So it's like knowing that these things are going to come up, and it's like, okay, so not only do I have 9 a.m. check my account, every Sunday at 8:30 a.m. I am sitting down to journal. And I don't need to do as much of it now a few weeks later as I did in the beginning, because now that I have shown my brain evidence that I can log in, I can do hard things, I can do the hard things around money, in fact, right? And so now it's, I don't need to do as much. But then there's also a process of, okay, what's that journaling going to be? What are we going to do? And what excuses is my brain going to come up with for this kind of stuff? And it is far fewer than I would have expected, especially once you say, okay, this is now a non-negotiable. This must happen. This is who I am. I check my bank accounts at least on Sunday at 9 a.m. And I know that there's probably people out there, they're not likely listening to this podcast, but they log into their bank accounts and things every single day. And that is kind of, to me, a very hardcore relationship to have with my money. I'm not ready for that kind of level of commitment, but definitely once a week, and then logging in to pay certain things as they arise, pay certain people. That is something that I feel happy with, and that is a level of commitment that I can commit to. They say treat your money like it's a relationship with someone and that sort of thing. And that's where I'm up to. The next step is just for like anxiety management, and this is something that I kind of do all the time anyway. and that is keeping my level of self-care at a point where it can minimize my anxiety. So the self-care, so it's like getting more than 7 hours sleep for me. That's my specific. The moving 6 days out of 7 at least 30 minutes, going for a walk, or sometimes it's 10 or 20 if I'm unwell. Other times I do like 2 workout sessions in a day, one with weights and things, another one walking outside. My third thing is, for me, doing the dishes is a thing of self-care. So we don't have a dishwasher. We live in a rented place. We don't have a dishwasher. I do the dishes myself. And for me, that's partly meditation, but also it's like, as long as the dishes are done, the kitchen can be clean and I can cook the healthy food. So, when that doesn't get done, that's when more takeaways could happen. There's more reason to have an excuse for takeaway, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's a part of self-care for me. Drinking enough water, eating my food, which is pretty much on lock. That's just like a habit and everything. Doing journaling to help with my mind, and then meditation is the newest one. I use an app called Insight Timer. I thoroughly recommend it. Absolutely not sponsored. Was recommended to me by the amazing Michelle Hearn Coaching. She's a productivity coach, and this Insight Timer, it's got like meditation music, little 5-minute meditations that I love and can stick to, and I much prefer it to Calm was the other app that I used, but yeah, Insight Timer is just like this next level. It's got all this extra stuff and I love it. I love doing my journaling while listening to the meditation music. It really calms me, gets me in a great zone, and I love that. And then the other part for me, the last step was just doing like the affirmations around money and me, and like that kind of scripting and things, and that my business is working and improving 1% every day. And I have these scripts that I go through and write down that help me get me into a particular zone. So those are the steps. I will recap them again at the end. But now, just as we get closer to the end, I want to tell you, here's my situation now. So I am a few weeks in, okay, and I am recording this to help reinforce my new identity, to also share this before and after, and to, just help inspire people to move through these, and also to just help me remember these steps that I've gone through, because at some point this is going to be so easy, I'm going to have forgotten what I went through. Then I can listen to this and help people through it, that kind of thing. So I have been sitting down at 9 a.m. every Sunday morning, okay, and I obviously didn't get it all done in the beginning because there were months to catch up on, but I did my 45 minutes to an hour. And as I did each week, then I caught up more and more. And now it will get shorter. And at some point, it might even be just like a 30-minute thing that I only have to do. So it gets shorter and easier every week. And like I said before, even the week that I was in significant dental pain, right, that was absolutely 100% still a time when it's like, okay, I've got to log in and do this. I may not be perfect, but I'm going to log in, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do the steps that I can and leave the rest until next week after I had my dental surgery. So now I can log into my bank account. Like I don't have to journal for 30 minutes before I log in now. I do journal, but it's the awesome fun journaling, the scripting and I'm really grateful for this and I'm glad this happened and that cool stuff, right? So that really gets me into the zone. It's not oh my God, I gotta log into my bank account and I hate banking and I hate money and the numbers and the judgment and stuff. It's not that, right? I don't judge myself on my worth or on the numbers. And in fact, it is kind of liberating to actually talk openly and sort of say to you guys, yes, at the moment, like I'm breaking even in my business and, using my savings to just invest in a little bit of extra coaching. And so, technically I am spending a bit more than I am making. And then some months I dip down and things. However, I know that it's all going to come together to me. Like the leaps that I've made in the last few months, the fun I'm having with the podcast, connecting with you guys, like I know it's all going to come together. It's going to work. I'm building my skills in just connecting with people, building the know, like, and trust and that sort of stuff, right? So I'm not judging myself or my worth on the numbers. I know my numbers. I can make informed decisions from the numbers without all this judgment of, oh, you're spending something again. And I'm actually like making more offers to people, and I am actually getting more clients, right? More people are interested in, booking in strategy calls and things like that. And yeah, like this is not heavy anymore. There's no more that desperate energy of, oh, I have to make more money, I have to get more clients. People can smell that desperation, and it will absolutely repel clients. So I am much closer, like in some ways, like I'm much more aligned with who I was before I left my part-time day job in terms of looking at my numbers, because obviously at that point in time, the numbers didn't bother me as much. Like it would be a case of, oh yeah, you're spending more than you're making, but it's like, it's okay because I've got this extra income so I can do this. Now I'm in this much healthier place of like, actually, you know what, even without that extra income, I'm still okay. Like we still have savings and I am going to be safe and I'm not going to be on the street and that kind of thing. I'm in an even better place than I was previously. Understanding how like this just really held me back, the desperate and needy, it didn't get results. And now I'm just this new version of myself, okay? I am a brave coach who knows her numbers and doesn't judge her self-worth on the numbers in her bank account, okay? That is who I am. That is my identity. And it is so worthwhile being on the other side, having faced this, having worked through it, and no longer be judging myself on this stuff, right? These are the types of shifts that help you make bigger leaps when you're doing brave things. And I know looking at your bank account shouldn't be one of those brave things, but I think it can be for a lot of us, and especially for those of you who maybe don't have my background and don't understand what like the numbers in the accounting software mean and those different accounts and profit and loss and that kind of stuff. I mean, we probably know profit and loss, but those spreadsheets, or even just like building your own spreadsheet to track things and income versus expenses and yeah, making those decisions and things like that. It was so worthwhile. And this is what I help my clients do, okay? It's because the behavior change comes from shifting into a new identity. And I've done this in a number of different areas of my life. Like for a number of years, I've been able to get on a scale and look at a number and not judge myself on that. Ironic that I couldn't transfer that into my numbers in my bank account and everything. However, I absolutely have now mastered that. And it was that proof to my brain of, well, I've done it in this other area, surely I can do this here too. But still understanding that I still have to go through the steps. And I don't know about you guys as coaches, if you those of you still listening, if you can relate to that of like even us as coaches, sometimes like we don't want to go through all the steps. We just want it to be instant and easy, okay? So when you are making that shift into the new identity, the brain will challenge that shift, right? My dental pain, when I have been setting new things on the food and exercise side of my life, that is invariably when I'll get sick as well. It's like it will challenge things. Like when I left my part-time day job and then one of my business clients dropped out who I thought was locked in. So just, yeah, things will come up and challenge you. And so you need the right tools, and you need those tailored specifically to who you are, your own experiences, and how that works. Like I talked about my background and how different thoughts and beliefs had formed during that background. And like, this is what we can look at and shift for you, right? And we shift fast. Like I made this shift within within a week or two, like once I really started actually sitting down and working through it, and then reinforcing the new behaviors and the new identity and things like that. It's way faster than the first time I started doing this, let me tell you, okay? And yeah, like this is just the value of working with someone like me who has gone through this myself and is still always working on different things and moving through and making those big brave leaps into the next version of who I am, so that I can do more of this stuff and help more people. because my experience is like it's one thing to meet with someone who's like maybe never had an issue with logging into their bank account. Like I can tell you, one of my coaches, she wasn't as helpful because I think it had been too long since she'd been through it, or maybe she hadn't ever really gone through it. It was just didn't quite compute to her, and then so it was harder to work through. So yeah, it's just, anyway, this is what I help my clients do. If you have gotten through this and you are feeling so cool, so aligned, and want to break through a block like this, whether it's around money, whether it's around sales, getting on camera, doing that next big masterclass, right, whatever it is, just book in that free strategy call. Come and find me, tiffanygstudios.com, TIFFANY, G for golf, STUDIOS.com. And you can find the link to book in the top right. There's a big button, book a call. Or you can come find me at Instagram at Tiffany G Studios. It's my handle on Instagram. So come and get in touch, and you can get the link. We can get on a call and we can see how we can work together to help you bust through this block faster, because it was definitely having some outside help from coaches that helped me get started, that helped me feel safe to dive into this. And while there was a lot of work on my own, that was just because I hadn't found someone like me who had actually been through this and could sort of apply it to this situation. The quick recap, all right, how I broke through this, okay, and you can always go back and listen to it again, but it was getting in touch with the why, with my why, okay, having a real good reason for behavior change, deciding how I want to feel ahead of time, like the next time I go to sit down through this. And part of that is working through those beliefs and the thoughts and shifting those, and using like those ladder beliefs or ladder thoughts to help, I'm learning that things could be a different way, because trying to jump from one to the other just doesn't always help. Your brain doesn't believe it after believing something for 40 years, or for you guys, probably 30 something years, right? And then creating that step-by-step plan and just being like, okay, what is the date and time I'm going to tackle this? Okay, what's my first step? What's my next step? And then the self-care for anxiety, and then the affirmations around money. So for me, something really valuable was my business is working and improving 1% every day. There was also more to it, but like, again, that needs to be tailored to who you are. I think when you hear other people's affirmations, like, it can sound nice, but it can also be putting on a skirt that doesn't suit you, or a dress that doesn't quite suit you. So that's the recap. Thank you so much for listening. And that's it from me. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to the Business Bravery podcast. Has this episode inspired you to do something brave? Even if it's only send a difficult email, please share it with me on Instagram or other social media channels. Feel free to tag me at Tiffany G Studios. That's TIFFANY, G for golf, STUDIOS, no spaces, no underscores, etc. Or you can use the hashtag Business Bravery Podcast so that I can cheer you on, and together we can inspire other coaches and course creators to do brave things in their business and life. Now, I'm Tiffany, and I'll leave you with this one last thing. What's one brave thing you're going to do today? It doesn't have to be big. Even the smallest steps can create the most massive results. So again, feel free to share it with me either publicly or privately so that I can cheer you on. That's it from me. Until next time, bye for now.